Yeah, it's 5 o'clock. This is the, welcome to the informational meeting, the 2024 pre-town meeting. I'm gonna call to order, the informational meeting. First thing, set adjust agenda. Anybody wanna tack anything on? Please say no. All right, so we're good. We're gonna roll with the agenda we have. Item 1 is to summarize the fiscal year 25 budget and highlight significant events just to stimulate conversation. And then we'll take questions and that's the program. So, oh, and good luck to the Asian basketball team tonight.
Another one if you want.
Oh, do you want this one? Sure. So I'm just gonna go through, so on your town, you guys have town report, if you wanna follow along, on the town report, page, I am gonna take us to page 11, to the bottom, to the budget summary. This is what I kind of think of as the bottom line, because what we're actually proposing to the voters is the budget, which is the bottom line budget is page 11. Budget summary, the proposed budget is $4,018,083, which represents a 7.55% increase over the previous year. You'll note that there wasn't as much increase last year or the year before. I would say that my opinion on this budget is that we haven't had much of an increase the previous couple years, as costs for a lot of things were kind of ramping up. And so to me, it feels like this is a little bit of the cost of everything has been creeping up and is catching up with us in this budget. I think that's part of it, part of the driver for the increase. Another thing that gets us, we had I believe we had one union contract that expired and got renegotiated, I think, rolling into this. Healthcare costs are up. And we're actually proposing increasing office staff. So let me find where that is. That's in our page 13. Right, office expenses, go ahead.
No, finish.
Well, I was just gonna say, we're proposing, expanding one position,
half a position, basically.
right, but we have a current, zoning administrator, and we're proposing expanding that role. And, that hits us in our budget in a couple ways. One, that's increase in salary, but also makes that position eligible for benefits.
Yeah.
And so it costs more. The reason that we've put this in this budget, and the reason we think it's a reasonable move, is because especially right after the flood, there is a ton of administrative overhead in the way that we need to access the FEMA funds and other grant funds that are available to us. And so
And floodplain requirements that we have to follow that
right.
involve a lot more planning and oversight. I mean, the draft maps of the new floodway or floodplain, it includes like another 100 houses. So keeping us in the flood insurance program has been Kristen's main focus.
But she's also got into, we had some property buyouts that are funded through state and federal sources, and partly because we were able to have her focused on that. The recent round that were funded through the state, she got Hardwick's request into the state before they ran out of money, which was helpful for
She's definitely
some Hardwick people. So anyway, that's sort of why we're proposing that part, so there's an increase
So that's her
Carry on.
salary plus the new
plus the
hours,
benefits.
Plus benefits.
Plus
Salary and
benefits.
benefits, so that's,
So her
that's definitely
salary's
an
already
increase.
in there,
Yes.
that, her, what she's,
This is,
yep.
this is proposed, yeah,
Because that was
in
one
the
of the questions
proposed.
that I was asked,
Yeah.
and I thought that was the answer, but.
So that's why, so this is the select board's proposal to the town. This is what we think would be the best way forward, and,
For the next year.
for the next year. We also have increases in, so I am kinda just winging this, but at my recollection, we have,
Retirement
oh,
has increased. Our
yeah, and
Employer contribution.
our insurance has increased. But I was gonna jump to the line items, cause we went up there too on page 17. And we just have some capital, our capital equipment fund is up. That is not up, so that was originally, when we first started working on this budget, that was a much bigger jump. But we did manage to pull that down, so it's not quite as big. Our capital fire equipment, that's where we're saving up, for our next fire truck, years away. And, what else? The
Bond
Judith,
payments.
Big with the bond payments for the big
Bond
ones.
payments are gonna be coming due,
but
but they were in,
The
most of those
library.
were in our last year's budget,
Except for the fire truck
yeah.
and the library went,
the library went up.
And gravel pit, because
And
gravel
rescue
pit was
squad.
interest only in the current year.
Right.
Will be a principal payment.
But the rescue squad went up,
Rescue squad went up, and this is the second year in a row, I think, the rescue squad's taken a pretty big jump. And the way they allocate their request to us, is they basically take their costs that aren't covered by their billing to insurance, cause they do bill to insurance, but they take the remainder of their cost, and then they divide it up among all the towns they serve, according to population.
based on call volume.
Call volume.
Yeah.
Isn't it both, though? Is it just
No,
call
it's call
volume?
Call
volume.
volume.
Okay, thank you.
They take their calls and they
Yeah.
take out each town and you pay on a percentage of your call.
And basically their costs are just continuing to rise. And part of that is because they are finding that they don't have the volunteer resources that they used to have, and so they have more paid resources. So that cost is greater. I don't know, other highlights, anything else that people wanna call out?
well, I think maybe it might be worth mentioning that we did a lot of work on the capital equipment purchase schedule.
Mhm.
We changed that quite a bit to more accurately reflect what we're gonna be, not necessarily for this coming spending year, but for future spending years.
That's
So
true.
we did some work making, kind of analyzing
And that's page 18.
on page 18.
We eliminated a police cruiser, didn't we?
Yep, we bumped out the police cruiser, and then we also, because we are
Leasing the loader
leasing
and
the loader and
grader.
grader, we took that big payment out.
And we think we've adjusted prices accordingly on that budget, like according to current costs, but current costs are very high. On trucks, we also have an issue with trucks, this isn't necessarily directly budget, but somewhat budget, where we essentially are, the lead time between when we order a truck and when we get it is gonna end up being a year. And so it's putting us in a position where we don't feel we can actually trade a truck that we wanna replace, because then we'll be down a truck for a winter. Whereas before, it used to be a few months, you'd order it, you get the truck pretty quickly, it'd be away for a few months getting a body put on it, you'd have it set up for winter. Now, you order a truck, it's months and months before you get it, and it's months and months before you can get the body on it, and a whole year elapses. And so, we're gonna be not trading, but selling our used trucks after the fact, like private sale. we think. We haven't found any other alternative plan yet. So truck prices have gone up and we think that the deal, like, it's just gonna be a little more difficult to get good value. We felt like we were able to get pretty good prices on our trades when we put it out to bid.
Well, you could count on that.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a little tougher. Anyway, and so we did rearrange that, so we think it's good. We have, trucks are all on a schedule to get replaced. The idea there is that we never run anything long enough that it's really falling apart. And what ends up being really the thing that gets the trucks in the end is rust on the bodies, I think, more than anything else. But the idea is if we replace them on a pretty good schedule, they're never really in terrible shape. Although the reality recently has been repairs have been really expensive even on very
Right.
new trucks.
Bodies are outlasting the electrical junk.
It's crazy. We've had just tremendously huge, we've had $20,000 repair bills. It's just insane. And I don't know how to get around that either, so we're just budgeting for it. So, that's my introduction. I'm hoping you guys have questions, and if you don't, make something up. Come on.
You're gonna always pay for repairs because there's less hands and knowledge changes. You can't even hire somebody to be your personal mechanic on new trucks.
We used to.
And it's just hard.
Can't.
The world's changed a lot and everybody has to pay.
Yeah, but
Yeah. It's just the way the world is, the technology, whether it's the grader, the loader, the truck.
right.
You know, maintenance is a whole other thing. I'm not gonna bring that up. You know, I mean, we all know different towns have different ages of equipment and different budgets for their stuff. Hardwick has very good equipment, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Some of the best. I hope it does the job that they need it to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, immediately after the flood, I felt fortunate that we had equipment we could rely on. It wasn't broken down. But I do find the trucks, for me, it's a sore spot because they're so expensive. We try to keep them new and it still feels like they break down all the time and they cost a ton of money to keep them.
Is it possible to buy older refurbished equipment? I don't know.
So,
Then you're running into repair bills.
Right, of course, but you know, I mean, that's the balance, right? It sounds like you're getting repair bills on these brand new trucks as
we
is.
are, but their frames aren't breaking because they're rusted. I mean, that's the
Sure.
other thing, the frames and the bodies really rust.
Well, I wouldn't buy them from Vermont.
No, but when you get to places where they don't have snow, they don't have trucks to plow and sand and salt.
Right.
So,
I mean, even so, I think, like, if you look at the capital equipment purchase schedule, that's one of the things I mentioned we worked on. We bumped it out, so that way, before it was every 6 years that we replaced.
No, I think-
Eight,
It's
it's
been
eight for
yeah.
the big trucks, but some of the other trucks, like the F-150, F-250, we went out further on to cut the schedule.
oh, that's true,
Like,
just looking
instead
at,
of go like 10 years or something like that, like, the F-150, just try to,
for rigs that don't get as much abuse and don't maybe get driven
Don't
as much,
plow,
they don't have to
yeah.
plow,
yeah.
then
So
they
this
can,
way-
we can hold on to those longer.
Like trucks 6 and 7, we went
So I
out.
guess my point would be if we got used equipment, then those would be bumped.
No use
You-
equipment.
Just to make the point, we're not going to, but just to
Sorry, I
make the
don't
point.
know you, but bad idea.
But just to make, just
We're
to
not
make
gonna
the
do that.
point, if we were to do that, then that
No,
equipment
no.
schedule, no, just to explain it,
Yeah,
Danny,
yeah,
just to
yeah.
explain it, that equipment
I know.
schedule would be every 4 years or every 2 years versus every 8. So that's in my mind, that's the benefit of getting a used truck, used dump truck. is you
Used
have-
or new?
The new, sorry,
Yeah.
because then you've got 8 years, there might be
Right.
some maintenance, but you know you've got it for 8 years. And
Right,
then theoretically, you have some value to trade in,
or not
or
trade to
not
sell.
trade in or sell later.
So that's definitely the way.
But not
you
trading
use-
anything, definitely.
You described the problem.
Yeah.
Because there's just no way of trusting,
Not
you
in the
know, used truck.
We're gonna get
You
a lot
know what I
less.
mean?
on
Used
sale.
equipment, you're just always gonna be behind.
No, but I think it's a good question. I think it's a
Yeah,
good
it is.
question, and it,
The question I keep asking is there a way to lease these trucks so that somebody else owns it? And you can just give it back if it becomes really problematic, but,
Well, that's the next, my question is, the truck's gonna continue to last 8 years
No,
economically. So
come
that
on.
means, I mean, whether you're a select board or somebody else, those numbers will change. Your F-250, you know, your F-150, that stuff there is a little more predictable
Right,
with some care
right,
and some longevity.
which is why we've extended those a little bit.
Big stuff is just the way it goes, as you know. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you have no way, so this schedule is just a guesstimation.
Well, it is, you will have to modify it,
Yep,
and you have before,
yep,
for need and cost,
yep.
and you have to have that power to do that.
Yeah, my worry would be the truck's not lasting to 8 years.
That's what Mike just said.
Right, that's the real concern more than anything.
Wash them.
They can't go
Yeah.
up much more, Mike, because people aren't gonna be able to afford it.
We could, washing them would be good. It'd be great to have a great way to do that
Yes,
in the winter.
it would be great. I got, yeah.
It's not cold anymore, it's warm every week.
That's true. This year it
We don't
is.
have, we don't have hot water at the garage.
No, that garage is
that
not
new-
sufficient
their
to
new,
do a whole lot of maintenance on stuff, I gotta say, yes.
Yeah.
All right, what
Can't
else?
Walk around them, so.
What's the other?
I'm good.
Me too.
I mean, we've been through
We've been
this
on
a
this.
lot, but,
Yes, we have. Yes. So Wiz okay?
Yeah, she just thought this started at 5:45 for some reason, so,
Oh, good, as long as she's okay. I don't think it's needed.
okay, she missed her last, her real last.
I mean, yeah. The other thing that, you know, maybe is to talk about is our police budget just had a more modest increase than some others on page 14. But that is something that, used to be offset by a Greensboro contract, and we haven't had that in a couple of years. So we're still, that cost weighs pretty heavily on our taxpayers. On the other hand, it seems like our police department's been pretty active in our community over the past year or so, and I think a lot of people appreciate them, so.
Yep, a lot of people do, but unfortunately, still a lot of people complaining.
Well, yeah. I love to complain. It's one of my favorite things to do, honestly, so I don't have a problem with it, but, the other thing I would say about the police isn't necessarily budget related, but it really is a difficult environment for hiring officers. And, so there's, we're always like, we'd like to have full-time certified officers, but the reality is that we can't hire very many. When we hire as many as we can, who we think are gonna be beneficial to our community, but then we're filling in a lot with part-time officers too. It's just something that's facing us. We're gonna have to, as a community, I think we're just gonna have to figure out how we're moving forward with the police. Hopefully we can keep it staffed.
So that, budget-wise, that's, we cannot, that means the only, I want to say, I can't think of the word I want to say, not solution, but the quick, easy way to think you can fix this is with money. But that's not the case.
No.
But it's gonna cost money.
Yeah.
Let's not forget about that. I mean, if we could afford for how many full-time certified we need right now, it would be very expensive to find those people and keep those people.
Well, not even just expensive.
Our budget would be well
Right.
over $1 million.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but if we could find someone that was willing to do it, we're still gonna have to compensate them
Yeah.
to where this budget would not be sufficient for that at all, nowhere near. So I think we need to have a bigger discussion about police department soon.
Yep.
Could we try to solicit contracts from other towns in the surrounding area to be able to increase that budget?
That's been done and tried and.
So, yeah, so that's something
So
to
the
look
problem we
at
have
for
really is
sure.
right currently is manpower. We can't get enough to do what we want to do now. That's today's problem
For Hardwick.
for Hardwick. So, but in not,
Couldn't contract others without it.
but in order to, if we were even capable of attracting people, it would have to be, all I'm saying is, it would cost us substantially more. Problem is, we can't even promise people more and get them.
We don't have a product, we can go to other towns with.
Right, I hear that, and it's just trying to,
Yeah.
find that money somewhere, and if you had those contracts, then you had, it's a chicken or the egg kind of thing, it's like,
So we had Greensboro for years, and that worked out well. But it wasn't perfect, and I don't think we could replicate that in another town as easily.
But it is something that we need to keep our eye on, like how do we, that is part of the puzzle that needs to be considered.
Yes, that needs to be part of the discussion, but I personally think the discussion in Vermont needs to be one level above that. I don't want Hardwick to be necessarily the entity that's responsible for regional policing.
Yeah.
There should be state support for that.
Well, we have sheriff's departments that are, I don't know. I
Yeah.
just don't know that, it seems to me that there's certainly there's gonna be a burden on the base community for a regional police department.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because Woodbury and Walden and Greensboro aren't gonna be able to pay their share. They're just not gonna be able to. Their budgets don't even have, some of them don't even have any law enforcement in them at all. To speak of, $10,000 or something. So that's not a realistic figure for another community to get us to, you know what I'm saying? We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars for those other communities. For us to run a $3 million police department, because we got 4 towns. We need 12 cruisers and 16 guys, dispatcher. You know what I'm saying? It's a big wheel.
So, but I think we do, going forward, we need to have these discussions and we need to look at everything and,
We need to find a solution, there's no doubt about that.
right now, I think we have some really dedicated people on our police force who are doing a great job and, that's great. But then looking forward, how do we get the staffing up to a level where everything's sustainable for those people? Or, what else could we do? We can't, it has been, well, I shouldn't say we can't. I think it's been the view that we can't be one of those towns that just completely goes without policing and relies on the state police, partly because we're so far away from the state police barracks. Any of them, right? Because aren't they St. J, Newport, and Middlesex?
And they're all.
But in our
understaffed.
time as selectmen, we've asked the community a couple of
Yeah.
different times. And it was a resounding, we want the police department. That wasn't the question.
But,
But
Yeah.
how do we make that work is the question.
Right.
I think
Yep,
everyone
and-
wants it, it's just
and
functionally, they're not working anywhere.
and previously, when we had the Greensboro contract, it really did help offset the cost. So looking at that sort of model again, I don't know. We need to keep discussing, we don't have an answer. So I'm just bringing it up.
I don't think it's a policing problem per se, I think it's more of the, Department of Justice problem, we're seeing a greater societal
that whole-
and,
oh, yeah.
and, public,
Yeah.
public policy problems. And that's not just localized to Hardwick, but to Caledonia County and then also the state of Vermont and
But we-
arguably the country.
But we feel it locally.
Of course,
Right.
of course, but that's where I question the effectiveness, the effectiveness of the police department, not due to their own fault, but due just to the factors that are at play here.
Right.
And if our money would be better spent elsewhere, but maybe that's a discussion for next year. Or,
Yeah.
I don't know,
It's an ongoing discussion.
of course.
Yeah, it has to be, I think. Yeah,
Is there anything else with the police department right now?
nope,
I thought it would be worth mentioning that we do have a couple of new appropriations too.
okay,
The appropriations gonna fall, they're still within the budget, but they're
in
in
addition
addition
to.
to.
What page?
It's page 10. And Casey, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the new ones are Center for Ag, Salvation Farms, and Downtown Partnership. Are those all new this year?
Yes, and actually,
And there's one,
Neck Arts is considered new because it wasn't there last year, but it's been there in the
But,
past.
yeah,
It just,
okay.
they didn't have one last year, and then the Historical Society came off, so they're not there.
Yeah.
And then, so the articles 17, 18, 19, and 20 are the new ones.
Bless. Yep, so those are all voted on separately, but just to be aware, and they all have descriptions in the town report. I guess the only other, I really don't like the page 9 thing, but it's the one, it's the projected impact on the taxes. I can tell you, I don't like it because we had, it's an estimate because we actually don't know the year-end list yet. And, that's the main reason I don't like it, because that, and also that's not what we're voting on. We're voting on the budget. This is just meant to be an informational piece. So take it for what it is.
You better say that at town meeting also. The
You think so?
printed number is not the number.
It is, right, exactly.
That's a bold number that's already been spoken more than once. Like,
Okay, yeah,
I mean, I've heard it from people that have seen the town report and read it.
right, yeah,
For support on town meeting day, make sure people realize that bold print number had to be there at the time of print, or however you word it.
and it's estimated.
We never get the grand list until like May, so every year it's always the same. You never have that
Right.
actually accurate.
We never have it, and that's why I always, and we're not voting on this, so that's why I like to keep it separate, but it is and it's a point of, it's definitely a data point that people should consider.
Every
Like,
year it's the same place, same time, same figure, so, same guess.
yeah. Yeah,
All right,
Yes.
that's what I got.
so, on the cover, you look in the lower right corner, just amazing, this is seriousness right here, this is reality. Look how far away the river is
Yeah.
from the road.
now it's right at
Now it's in the road's closed because of the river.
Oh, I
That's how
hadn't
much
thought of
that
that.
river's moved since, whatever year that picture was taken.
Says see page 2.
I mean, there's a field down there between the river and that road. I mean, that's the Y right there, right in.
Well, Yvette's house was right here.
1950.
Even crazier is the house that FEMA took was
75
right
years,
here.
not quite.
Yeah,
That's
right,
even more of a jump, because DNL's right, basically right here.
right, yeah, D&L's right there for
Yeah.
sure.
And her.
So her house is right there. So it's way over here now.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, the river is right.
Wow, that's,
And
That's
these
quite a
guys
change.
gained a lot of land.
yeah, yeah, so. Well, that's.
Oh, well, the wasps are awake. All right,
So I just want to quickly mention before we end
Yes.
the meeting that Casey and everyone in the departments did a really amazing job whittling this down to something that I think is going to make sure that we run effectively, but also are not overdoing it. We started with what,
It was around 13,
14%, and we got it down to 8. I think that's a pretty, so I just want to say thank you for working on that. I saw today in Stowe, that they have a proposed 26% increase for their property tax rate. So I just
yeah,
think that the town, the
Oh, we
the
killed all
office
those.
has done a really good job.
What warrior? There was a winter war.
Kaylee's right.
Most of them, yeah.
all right, we did, thank you for all your work on the budget, and it could have been worse.
Yeah, I mean, compared, there's.
It could be worse.
A lot of towns, you know, we're looking at 20 and 30%, so,
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
while
no,
7.5 is not
But-
ideal.
but it's still a
still
big-
not
yeah, it's a
bad in the
big-
grand scheme of things.
It's a big jump, and It's still, but we still think this is a budget that runs the town well. And allows us to leverage federal dollars going forward, which is gonna be a big, really big deal.
I'll be able to live here another year.
Yeah. Okay,
That's what you got.
all right. Can we,
We got some big projects on top of the ones we already have going on, coming down the pipe,
yeah,
that are needed,
right. So we're
unfortunately.
still working on our wastewater plant as after the flood,
Yeah,
working on flood hazard mitigation there.
yeah.
Still looking at our fire department, which is in the flood. Our town garage is too small.
A lot of bridges.
We have a lot of, almost all the repairs that we did on the roads were temporary. So
Yeah.
that has to go back and everything has to be redone. There's a ton of administrative overhead with all of that.
There's a bunch of ditches that were filled this last year that
Yeah.
they're not.
So there's just a lot of work.
I mean, we were just filling the road, whatever we could.
Yep. Get it open. All right.
It's pretty wild, though.
Any-
That goes away in your mind, though.
Yeah.
Any other questions before we wrap? All right. Thank you for coming. I'm gonna adjourn.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thanks,
Seriously.
everybody.